of Research and Development for Hometown Health System, Assistant Professor of Business and Theology at Campbellsville University and Lander University. Dr. Roop spent 17 years in active addiction and would ultimately become homeless before entering recovery in 2013. Since then, he has earned his Master of Theology degree in 2018 and his PhD in Business Management and Leadership in 2022. Dr. Roop has written several publications on the leadership traits of people with substance use disorder, regularly speaks at national conferences in the field of addiction and treatment, and serves on Kentucky Opioid Abatement Advisory Commission. Dr. Roop's research interests focus on positive qualities and traits found in people with substance use disorder. His work is changing how people view addiction through understanding how personality and character traits can be rediscovered and used in positive ways. The trait-based model of recovery developed by Dr. Roop is a dynamic, person-centered, evidence-based approach which has been implemented across the nation within residential and outpatient care, court systems, and soon-to-be trait-based model of prevention in school districts in Kentucky and Ohio. Dr. Roop is an advocate for treatment, accessibility, holistic aftercare support, and person-centered care led by evidence-based practices. Please give it up for Dr. Roop. Woo!
Thank you. Well, thank you, Shirley. I appreciate that introduction. And then, you want me to turn this mic off, Larry? Okay, all right. Very good. I hear a little bit of very good. All right, well, you guys are wild out here in California. My goodness. It's an absolute honor to be with you. My wife, Amanda, there, and I traveled here from Kentucky. And I didn't bring a translator, so hopefully you can understand what I'm about to share with you. But again, it is an absolute honor to be here with you guys this morning. We've been looking forward to this conference, and you all are such an amazing people. And so again, it's just an honor to be here. So what I want to share with you today, of course, I believe is something so very profound, and I believe that you'll be tremendously moved by what you discover, by what we discuss here today. And as Shirley mentioned, I serve as a Vice President for Research and Development at Hometown Health System. I also serve as Professor of Business and Theology for Campbellsville University in Kentucky and Lander University in South Carolina. And I also serve as the creator, the founder of the trait-based model of recovery. But I wasn't born Dr. Jason Roop. I suffered 17 years in active addiction. I've been arrested 18 times. I've overdosed 4 times. Been raided by the police twice. And one of those times it was the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. And ultimately I would wind up in a homeless shelter in late 2012. But thankfully, on October 16th, 2013, I showed up to the front doors of a treatment center in central Kentucky with just a trash bag of my belongings. In the trash bag, I had some socks and some underwear and some old t-shirts. And what I discovered there, while inside the halls of that treatment facility, has always stuck with me. It's been so very profound, and actually what I observed would become the hypothesis for my dissertation in 2019. And that hypothesis was that people with substance use disorder possess leadership traits. They share the same personality and character traits with highly effective leaders, and I'll share that a bit more with you, a bit more detail in just a moment. But I was able to successfully defend that research in 2022, and then I showed back up to the front doors of that treatment center. Nearly 10 years to the date. But this time I had more than a trash bag of underwear, socks, and dirty t-shirts. I had a team of mental health professionals ready to deploy and implement a transformative psychosocial modality known as the trait-based model of recovery. And that is what I'd like to speak with you or to you about here this morning. And so, before we get started, just some quick learning objectives, what we're going to cover this morning. We're going to identify the characteristics in individuals that can help improve levels of commitment and optimism for the recovery journey through providing purpose and meaning. We're going to go through those 10 traits that people with substance use disorder commonly share with highly effective leaders. We're going to discuss how therapeutic efforts can be launched, which build upon those character traits, those strengths, and it increases not only self-confidence and self-perception, but it mitigates or reduces shame and guilt. And then, of course, it highlights or increases client self-awareness and understanding. So we're going to talk about the leadership traits, which also have positive and negative qualities or expressions, which brings about an incredible amount of understanding. And so what you see right here, this goes back, this is the first peer-reviewed publication that came out of that 3-year study, and it included 374 participants. A very diverse set of participants were included. And what was discovered, we had over 1 million pieces of data. And of course, I'm going to be analyzing the data, and I had 3 other peers, colleagues with me who were not in recovery. I was the only one with that type of background, and they verified, validated that what we were extracting from focus groups, interviews, observations, field notes, were that this data, these themes, this idea, this hypothesis that people in addiction have leadership traits checks out. And so this, of course, was published. There were 21 themes which were discovered, which were later distilled down into 10 traits that became the backbone of the trait-based model recovery. And what you're looking at now is a concept map to kind of show the breakdown for what we're discussing here this morning. So on the left-hand side of this diagram, you see obviously the term addiction. And then on the right side, you see the term leadership. I just want to draw your attention real quickly to the boxes above leadership and below leadership. Those are 2 very popular, well-embraced leadership theories, transformational leadership and authentic leadership. And within each of those boxes, you've got 4 dimensions, right? So if we want to say that people in addiction are highly effective leaders, or at least have those traits, we first want to define what makes a good leader. And so we look at these 2 theories to inform us of what a highly effective leader does or looks like. And you can see in the middle are those 10 traits which are shared between both groups. People who are highly effective leaders and those who are battling substance use disorder. This further elucidates some of the correlation between those dimensions and the traits. And you can go through here and actually you can access this content through our website at startfromstrength.org. But this gives a pretty thorough understanding of how these traits map on to those dimensions of leadership. And so I defended this idea, I defended my research in May of 2022, 2 years ago. And once I defended that, I knew that there was something more that was about to take place, or something more that could be done with these. And I really think that for a lot of us, we realize that people in addiction, like there's something that has set us apart, other than our behavior, our desires, our thought patterns. Like there's something very distinctive that we often share. And so what I did was began to compile together a modality that builds upon trait identification and trait management. And so in addition to that, we have a clinical component which looks towards the future in terms of setting goals, future-focused or solutions-focused therapy. And then in addition to that, the 2 other phases, and I want to make a mention real quickly, this diagram or this modality is not linear. It's not as though you go from trait identification, you stop identifying your traits, and then you go to the next phase, setting goals, and then look at entrepreneurship. It's a dynamic modality, meaning that any given day you can operate or learn in any of these areas, and it's self-informative, right? So as we progress in life, we learn what traits are needed the most, which traits are more prominent in our lives. So it keeps improving the further or the more that we go along this modality. And included additionally in terms of the trait identification and the solutions-focused therapy is entrepreneurial opportunities. Because a lot of times we have to be entrepreneurialistic in addiction. We wake up often with no money, with no resources, but by the end of the day, we accomplish our goals. And so this entrepreneurship doesn't go away when we enter into recovery. There's something there that can be used, which can be incredibly positive and transformational. And then additionally, we've got leadership development. We are placing leadership development right smack dab in the middle of addiction treatment and recovery. Because we believe it. We believe that people like us have this innate ability to dramatically influence people around them. And so that's the trait-based model recovery. What we're going to do next, I'm going to show you kind of those content areas, and then we're going to get down into the weeds. So we're flying at 30,000 feet right now. So this will answer the question, well, what exactly is the trait-based model recovery? Well, it's 100% online. It's a psychosocial modality that is accessible digitally from anywhere in the world. And so each lesson, and there's 40 lessons, right? There's 40 lessons that compose the curriculum. Those 40 lessons are divided into 8 modules, which you see those modules here. Each module has 5 lessons. Each lesson has a 30 to 45 minute video, followed by a lesson summary, followed by an assignment or an activity, and then also questions for discussion. So this curriculum can be navigated on a self-paced basis or in cohorts as groups. It can be navigated independently at home while you're going about your normal life, or it can be completed in a group inside a residential treatment setting. It's very adaptable, very, very scalable. And so there's also participant guidebooks that accompany the modality, as well as facilitator guidebooks. And we have lessons, right? So the way that it rolls out, if you can look up here, the title of Module 1 is Who Am I? And this is the most important question we believe that we can address right at the onset. We want to address the question, who am I? Because a lot of times we've only focused on the worst things about ourselves. We've tried to push away our selfishness and our pride and our obsession and our neuroses. But we have left entire parts of ourselves untapped, underexplored, and underutilized. And when we know who we are, we'll know what to do. And so that first module, we answer that question, who am I? We talk about the leadership traits, and then we go into the shadowlands. The shadowlands are the negative expressions of those same leadership traits. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But then with that as the foundation, it builds, right? We go into self-leadership in Module 3, and we've got lessons such as dealing with difficult emotions, critical thinking, and goal setting. And then in Module 4, we go to finding balance about health and wellness. We've got a lesson on mindfulness, of quieting the mind and stilling the soul or the spirit, so to speak. And then we, of course, in Module 5, we begin to journey into the community, right? We focus on establishing meaningful connections with others. So there's a lesson on building healthy relationships and conflict resolution. Module 6 is our transformational leadership module. We've got lessons, of course, on transformational leadership, authentic leadership, living or leading through uncertainty, and living with uncertainty as well. And then Module 7 with professional skills. We've got very straightforward lessons, lessons such as time and money management, building a resume, networking, professionalism, and then in Module 8, we look at entrepreneurship and the journey ahead. And this is a universal model, right? It is open to people of all faiths or people of no faiths. It's a model of empowerment, and it is a very inclusive modality as well. And it also, I want to say again, it works in any setting. We've currently got the trait-based model recovery in residential treatment, in outpatient, through drug courts, and soon to be in jails. And then here at the end, I want to share with you something about a prevention modality that schools have asked us to roll out this fall as well. So that's the 30,000 foot view of the trait-based model of recovery. And now we want to look at these leadership traits. And so what you see here on the left are those 10 leadership traits, which the research has suggested that people in addiction commonly share with highly effective leaders. And then the traits on the right, these are the negative expressions of those same traits. And there's more than one. There's one listed here, but there's more. And we as a people journey together and discover more and more traits, not only traits, but more and more shadows as well. And here's what we do. I'll return to this. We have been taught, typically, at least I believe this, that when it comes to treatment and recovery, again, that we try to push away the worst things about ourselves, right? We call them defects of character. We try to annihilate them. And here's what happens, though, and you guys know this. Whenever we try to focus on pushing those things away, what we hear internally is that there's entire parts of ourselves that are unacceptable. And it initiates this internal war. It's this internal war that will never, ever win. And so many people have spent their lives just wringing their hands, trying to remedy themselves, of themselves, so to speak. And it just doesn't work. And so through the trait-based model of recovery, our approach is going to be one of compassion and to look out over it all. We drop all labels. We don't call anything good or bad. We drop all labels, all judgments, and when we look out upon ourselves, these shadows, we accept everything of who we are. We acknowledge it, we integrate it, we forgive it, and then we learn how to use our traits in a much more positive and healthy fashion moving forward. And so, here's how this works. Let's take empathy. Empathy, according to the literature, is the number one trait that is most desirable amongst leaders. This is a general statement that is applicable to any organization. It is said or supported that empathy is what we desire the most from our leaders. Empathy is also shared or held by people with substance use disorder, but we don't recognize it as empathy. Empathy is the ability to connect very meaningfully with another person on a very deep emotional and psychological level. It's not just sympathy, right? You can say that sympathy is more like feeling sorry for someone, but empathy is actually entering into their difficulty and into their struggle and helping to lead them out. And people, not only in recovery and addiction, have this quality, but precisely in active addiction, we have that power, we have that ability. We can read the room really well, and we can create these emotional attachments. We can assess those around us and connect on a psychological or emotional level. But because addiction has sabotaged and hijacked our personalities, what ends up happening is we objectify the other person and we manipulate the situation to get what we want, which is 9 times out of 10, another pill, another shot, or more money to get more done. We want leaders of our organizations to be tenacious, to be resilient, to be determined. And here's the thing, in active addiction, we are tenacious. But this shadow, the shadow of tenacity, is obsessiveness. In active addiction, that's all I could think about. 23, 24 hours a day. Even I would dream about it when I would sleep. Like, how am I going to get that next shot of heroin? How am I going to coordinate these activities tomorrow to optimize my consumption of illicit substances? I was obsessed. But underneath that obsession is this river of tenacity that has always been there. And you can keep going down the list. And so, all right, now we begin to see something so very significant. If we see that, and of course I'm borrowing from Jungian psychology with the shadows, right? And I'll tell you just a little bit more how those shadows develop and how they're applicable in the trait-based model of recovery. But if these leadership traits, this is evidence-based, this is a peer-reviewed understanding, it supports that people in addiction have these leadership traits. What you're looking at now is this triangle of transformation. Now we're beginning to conceptualize something that a lot of us have always known, but we begin to conceptualize it now. And if you can look at this triangle here, if you look or imagine on the left side of the triangle, right, if you have a needle or a gauge in the middle, kind of like a speedometer, and it goes over here to your left. That represents when these traits are being held hostage or captive by addiction, and these traits actually will work to keep us bound in addiction. It's because this addiction takes on a mind of its own. The brain, the addicted brain begins to operate in ways which are completely unlike we were ever meant to live, to think, and to behave. And so the traits actually keep us bound because the addiction is being served by our traits. We're manipulating people. We're being obsessed. We're doing all of these things, right? And so what we want to do, if you look on the other side of the triangle, if you can imagine the gauge or the needle going to the right side. Well, this is when our traits can actually begin to empower us. It's when our traits begin to help us live the lives that we were meant to live. We're no longer our traits are no longer being used or hijacked by addiction, and we want to get it to the place to where actually our traits empower us and allow us and empower us to move forward in a much more healthy and positive fashion. So here's the tension. We have tension. Now we've created it, right? We want to get the needle over to the right side of the triangle. So how are we going to do that? I present to you the tree of traits. Granted, this looks absolutely nothing like a tree. It's my PowerPoint skills being displayed. It looks more like a carnival ride or a peacock. I've heard various responses on this.
I love it. It's colorful.
Thank you. Here's how this works. And this actually, the way that this came about is very mystical, you could say, but it's really, really impactful. So the 10 traits that we're working with, they can be grouped and categorized in a certain way, which gives us an emotional framework for the rest of life. So determination, tenacity, and resilience, all of these traits are grouped in the grit column path or branch. And here's the philosophy behind this. If you can imagine a tree is going to be the strongest right in the center, right? The further you go out on the branches, the more wobbly the tree becomes. So we're promoting balance and internal strength, right? And so on the grit path, the grit column path, determination, tenacity, and resilience, very much similar traits known as grit. Remember, determination is moving forward in spite of opposition. When you are determined, you keep moving forward. These are very closely associated traits, but yet still distinctive. And then, of course, tenacity. I said earlier, you're just standing firm in spite of the pressures that are against you. And then again, resilience is getting back up after you've been knocked down. Now look on the other side of the tree. You see 3 traits there: empathy, appreciation, and motivational. And what I mean by motivational, what the evidence suggests is that we have this ability to motivate others, right? And these 3 traits are all focused on relatability, on relationships, empathy, appreciation, and being motivational. And then in the center, you've got the path of balance, right? At the very bottom, you've got self-awareness. Above that, emotional intelligence. Above that, authenticity. And then above that, creativity. Here's how this works. Last April, I was at the RX Summit, and I just defended my dissertation, and I was rolling out the trait-based model recovery, and I had it in theory, in concept, and I put together a presentation at the RX Summit, building on this understanding, and people loved it. In that breakout session, like, people were crying, they were clapping their hands, and at the end, right, they had the microphone for the Q&A, and people were lined up from the microphone all the way to the back of the room, and they were lined up all the way around the sides of the room. And honestly, like, I was pretty amazed. I didn't expect that type of response. And I didn't really have anything put together as far as something to offer people to implement. It was all in concept, in theory. And so the first person that came up to the microphone just was sharing, like, Dr. Roop, we really love this revolutionary approach. When can we get it in our organization and implement it here? Well, I knew that I shouldn't have said, well, I don't know. I don't have anything for you yet. So I said the first thing that came to my mind And I said, 90 days. Which is, I didn't give myself a lot of time at all. It would take probably a team of 4 to 5 people, at least 12 months to fully roll this out. But I committed to 90 days, so we went back to Kentucky and went to work. And we were up probably 20 hours a day. In the morning, in the evening, at night, and I was creating videos. I'd never done like videos before. I had to learn the editing. I had to learn how to do all of that when it comes to videos. Also writing the curriculum, writing a participant guide, writing a facilitator guide. Like, it was a lot of work, right? And I remember coming home one evening, and I come home and my wife, Amanda, said, Jason, where's your joy?
That part.
And I said, what do you mean? She said, you're working yourself to death. You've got these bags under your eyes. You're white knuckling it. You're just completely, I can tell your countenance has changed. You're very serious. You're drained. You're stressed out. And she said, remember this: the trait-based model of recovery must be built with love. And guys, when she said that, in that moment, I realized it. And I said, Amanda, you are right. She's always right. What she was able to do was to, through just a brief interaction, bring me back home, bring me back to center, through this trait of self-awareness. And if you can see, hopefully you can, there's little arrows that go from the grit column path and the grace column path, and they come back down to self-awareness. Here's why. If at any time we find ourselves lost, either on the path of grit or the path of grace, we can come back home through self-awareness. What this looks like, it can be meditation, it can be mindfulness, it can be following the breath for 30 seconds or so. It can be prayer. But it brings us back home to center. Here's how somebody can get lost on the other side of the tree, the grace tree, or the grace column path. And again, I want to reiterate, there's no judgment. We don't judge people for deviating and going down these paths. Because if somebody finds themselves lost on the grace path, they've went out there because they've been compelled by compassion, care, and love. But what typically happens when we are out of balance and we go all out, that's what we do in addiction, in recovery, like we go all out.
Yeah.
And I did it on the grit path. But when you do it on the grace path, what ends up happening, you are caring about someone, you are paying attention to someone, you're trying to help someone, but if you're not careful, you end up losing your identity in the process. We end up losing our identity, and we get caught up in the drama of another person. And so we want to come back home, right, through the path of self-awareness. And when we've done this enough, we are beginning to cultivate emotional intelligence. Perhaps maybe for the first time in our lives, we are now able to manage, to regulate not only our own emotions, but to read the room, so to speak. And we come back home, we've cultivated emotional intelligence, and that allows us for perhaps the very first time in our lives to be our authentic selves. Because up till now, we've been sabotaged and hijacked by illicit substances. We've tried to please every other person, but our own selves, we have become so lost and disassociated with who we really are that we just lost completely. And when we begin to learn how to follow our traits and to use them in a much more positive fashion, things line up and our authentic selves emerge. And then with that beautiful trait of creativity that everybody has, it's not just art or music, it's language, it's communication, it's inspiration. With that trait of creativity, we can return to how we got lost on this path and put up strategies to help keep us moving forward in a much more positive fashion. So that's the tree of traits. There is an assessment that each and every one of you will be able to take here in just a moment. It's free and it will show you. This is a very valid instrument, a very valid tool. A lot of research went into creating this assessment and what it will do for you. All of our clients will take the assessment often. But what it'll do for you today is it will give you your 10 leadership traits and rank them in order of prominence. So you're going to have 1 through 10, and it's going to show for you which areas or which traits you possess the most of, or which are the most robust in your life. And if you have a trait that's down near the bottom, like at 8, 9, or 10, it doesn't mean that you lack any capabilities within those traits. It just means that in relation to the others are more prominent. Additionally, we have the heroes of the recovery journey archetypes. And some of you, I'm sure many of you know that we're borrowing from Jung, Jungian psychology, depth psychology on this a little bit, but it's never been placed in the recovery context, which is where it is so beneficial, because when we know our patterns for our personalities, right, it allows us to set up these strategies. It elevates our commitment on the recovery journey, right, and it allows us to better understand ourselves. A quick word about the assessment that you're going to take in just a few moments. This is not a static assessment. It's not to pigeonhole you or to stereotype you. You're not going to take the assessment today and walk away and know what your 10 traits are for the rest of your life, which personality or hero of the recovery journey you are. It's a dynamic assessment, because things always change. People always change. We change. And our tools should change with them. And so this assessment allows us to get an accurate reading for how we're doing in the present moment. And so the 4 archetypes that we've created for the trait-based model recovery is the ruler, the enchanter, the champion, and the lover. And again, when you take the assessment, you're going to get a full PDF report emailed to you, probably 7 to 8 pages. All of our clients and our graduates get this as well, to further illuminate our understanding of who we are, these patterns, right? And so just real quickly, the ruler, the enchanter, the champion, and the lover. It's not like we have 100% of one and 0 in the other 3. These are all patterns which are reflected in our very own lives. And so let's say you take the assessment, let's say a client takes the assessment, and the assessment shows that they're a lover. They're really drawn to people. They're really good about protecting others. Well, at work, they've got a new project. They need to train their staff or their team on how to implement the new project or tool. And so a ruler is able to bring about clarity, order, and structure. So if our client who assessed as a lover needs to be the ruler at work, the trait-based model recovery shows us how to do that. All right? So first, the ruler. All of these archetypes have both positive and negative expressions, and they're based upon the traits. So if you're a ruler, the quality or the skill of the ruler is able, like I said, to bring about clarity in times of confusion, brings about order in times of disorder. We need rulers, right? We need that central location internally to kind of set the balance in the kingdom, so to speak, where things are running properly and efficiently. And when a ruler is living in balance, things are going great. But when we get misaligned, when the shadow ruler begins to emerge, which he's there in all of us, or she's there in all of us, when the shadow ruler begins to emerge, that shadow ruler looks like someone who's domineering, who's overpowering, who's difficult to deal with, and overbearing. Remember, we want to promote fullness or balance, centered connectedness. The enchanter. The enchanter is on the positive side. This is someone that likely is going to be in your sales department. They're very charismatic. They're very vocal. They're very energetic. They just have a way of influencing others. They just have a way of just providing this inspiration for others to get them to look at their day a little bit more positively. They are able to get the client or the customer to commit to signing the dotted line, right? They're really fun to be around. Enchanters are magicians, right? Everybody loves to have a good magician friend, right? Who wouldn't?
Right.
I've had a lot of them, most so, though, in active addiction. The enchanter in active addiction will help you look for the $20 that they stole from you.
So what happened was
the enchanter, when he dips and dies, makes reality appear like it's not reality, and making unreality appear like it's real. That's the enchanter.
I like that.
And what we want to move towards is integration, balance, and wholeness. And through the trait-based modality, we teach our clients how to achieve that. So that's the enchanter. The champion, right? The champion is the warrior. It's that part of us that wants to defend everything that we care about. We want to keep the people that we love and care for away from harm. So what we do is we go and we remove, we address, or we confront these things which can damage those that we love, which can damage peace and life and love and joy. We need a champion. Organizations need champions, right? To defend the perimeter, to keep the outside threats external, not allowing them to enter in. But when a champion's out of balance, they're stressed out, they've gotten lost on either path, the champion can become very, very stubborn and out of control. In fact, a champion may even have an anger issue, may even display bouts of rage. But remember, we don't throw the champion out, we don't throw the enchanter out. We better understand, send the love towards those characters and integrate them in a more truthful fashion. Here's the other archetype or hero of the recovery journey, and it's the lover. And the lover, when the lover is living in balance, of course, they're going to be drawn to people. They're going to help others live the best lives that they can live, right? They're going to inspire others. They're going to encourage others. And our organizations, we need lovers. And this applies to familial relationships, friendships, community, engagement, romantic. It talks about all of it, right? We want those lovers in our organizations because we genuinely care about people. That's what a lover will do. But when a lover is out of balance, they become codependent. They lose their identity. We become obsessive or obsessed. And a lot of bad things can happen beyond that. We become people pleasers. So, what our clients are saying is that this understanding has radically transformed not only their view of themselves, but life in general. Because honestly, if I can just speak openly, well, I have been speaking openly, but I want to take it a little further this morning and say that by the time we get to treatment, by the time a client shows up to you, we so devalue ourselves. We can't commit to anything, and we cannot see a positive outcome because we're starting from a negative position. We can't even imagine it. And honestly, guys, we're told that we're nothing more than a defective part of the human species sometimes. We at least internalize that. We feel that. Maybe it's not been said as explicitly, but we realize that we're a problem that just needs to be fixed, or that we are someone that just needs to stay on the other side of the room, so to speak. And so when we go into treatment and recovery, we don't give ourselves a fighting chance. With the trait-based model recovery, we change the game. The starting point, our slogan, starting from strength. I rolled out the first pilot, the first group that started the trait-based model recovery at a treatment center in Central Kentucky was in late June or July of last year, precisely 88 days after the RX Summit in Atlanta when I promised 90. And out of all of our graduates, we just started, right? We just started last year, not even been a full 12 months yet. We keep the data on all of our clients, not just economic demographic detail, but also we're going to measure outcomes. And out of our graduates, 96% are still sober today. We've had 57 graduates. 92% hold leadership positions. And this is applicable to employment externally in the secularized world, or within treatment, or within some type of volunteerism. But as you can see, as the graph kind of charts it, prior to starting the trait-based model, of course, a lot of them were completely unemployed, but we can see through the completion of this modality and beyond that 92% serve in a leadership capacity, because what we teach our clients is that leadership is influence. And you've been leading people your entire lives and you may not even realize it. But now we're going to lead people towards the road of redemption and of restoration and of thriving in life. We're going to influence others positively. 84% of our clients that begin the modality complete the modality. And this is really important for residential treatment providers or any type of treatment providers because it helps your retention rates. And so here's another just kind of qualitative story. At one of the treatment centers, we're being told that in the morning, right? In the morning, clients are getting ready for class and they're having to chase them down. They're outside smoking. They're just kind of being lost so they don't have to go to boring class or whatever. They just, you know, we would do the same thing if we were there. But they said for the trait-based model class, clients are lined up before 8 a.m., before the class even begins, before the door is even unlocked. And so I want to share with you that assessment. You can scan the QR code, and I do have a little bit more to go, so if you want to take it in just a minute, you can, or you can take it while I'm speaking, but this will take you to our assessment. Again, it's going to give you your leadership rates, or traits, and rank them in order of prominence. And I'll go back to that. I'll put that up at the end as well in case you didn't get it just there. Does anybody need me to put it back up? I will. I'll go back. Yep. Yep. Mm-hmm. Okay. Ready? You're welcome. Here's some of our graduates. I've got some pictures. At the lower left, that's our first class that graduated in Willisburg, Kentucky. And then we have now had 5 graduating classes, and we have partnered with, of course, treatment providers in Kentucky, residential as well as outpatient. We've not done any marketing, any advertising whatsoever. This has all been brought about by relationships and word of mouth, but we really believe that this modality, this approach is going to revolutionize recovery from coast to coast. Like, this is our full conviction and belief. And our other partners, I got a phone call from the Albuquerque, New Mexico District Attorney's Office last year. Normally that would freak me out.
Right?
But what they shared is that, like, look, it's bad here in Albuquerque. And we were at the RX Summit and we heard the presentation on the trait-based model. Will you please come out here and talk to us? So Amanda and I, we flew out there and we entered into an agreement. They have 353 participants in the pretrial diversion program, and they are sending them through the trait-based model recovery because all of these clients, they're not in a facility, they're not locked up, they're not in residential treatment. They're living their normal lives. They're going to work, they're raising their families, and they're able to go through all 40 lessons of the trait-based model because it can be done so on a self-paced basis. And then we meet virtually once every week for 2 hours. And so we just wrapped up our second graduating class from Albuquerque last Thursday. And so things are going really well. In fact, I'm happy to share with you that we found out last week that things are going so well that they have actually renewed the contract and extended it for 3 more years.
Oh, that's awesome. Woo!
This is Carlsbad Lifehouse in Carlsbad, New Mexico. They also are doing residential treatment in outpatient settings and their sober living homes, and also take it into the local jails. I want to share with you some quotes before we open it up for Q&A for just a moment. This is from one of our quotes. This is from Christy. She says, "Finding our purpose in life and in recovery begins with finding out who we are. This model will enable men and women to discover their strengths so they can rise above addictive thinking and behaviors and become productive members of society." Cody shared this. "This model has given me the opportunity to dig deeper within myself and realize that I have what it takes to be a leader. The qualities have always been there, and it may have taken a while, but it helped me reach my potential." And then, of course, from one of our original participants, says it's like a superhero that goes from the dark side to the good side. They didn't lose their superpowers, they just stopped using them for crappy reasons. So very true. And that's what we tell our clients. The very same traits that got you into trouble can become the very same traits that lead you out. And so what does this mean? Well, it changes how we view addiction, first of all, as it being more than, and we know this, there's basically two modalities or two models of understanding. One is the moral model that says, well, we'll just incarcerate people and they'll learn their lesson. The moral model says bad people take bad drugs, right? We know better than that, but that's a way a lot of people understand this. And then the other side is the disease model, right? The medical model. Which there's a lot of validity to that, but we honestly, those are only two options at the moment. What trait-based does is introduces a third option, a third way of understanding of how effective recovery can be done, and it builds upon the personality or character traits, and it just shows, this demonstrates that it can be done, and we can be successful by doing or following this approach. It allows for treatment providers to improve their retention rates, to establish, business relationships, because a lot of industry is looking for leaders that can be trained and qualified. They're looking for employees. They're looking for people who can make a difference. Like our treatment centers, our outpatient clinics have these people. That allows you to branch out externally to establish those relationships. And so, another thing I like to share, so I've done a few of these community presentations in like a town hall style setting. And oftentimes, like some people have gotten up, and we were in Middlesboro, Kentucky actually in December, and a lady got up and she was just crying. She said, I could have used this my whole life. So my mom and my dad never told me that they loved me. And I battled with depression and anxiety, and what you shared here tonight really helps me to see life in a whole new way. I'd always envisioned that the trait-based modality could become, or as an add-on, we can do a prevention modality as well, because do you guys know this? This isn't in my slides, and I'm just going to throw it out there. At least in Kentucky, we don't have prevention. We've got kind of the edges of DARE, but we really don't have a very good program. At least nothing prominent, nothing that's been implemented. And actually, after doing some research on this in 1992, and DARE worked for me. I didn't get high at all in school. I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, and listen, I didn't even go to dances. Like I was raised by a very literalist, fundamentalist family. Right? And in school and there, it was like very, very, like I didn't want my brain to fry in a skillet on drugs, so I didn't get high. But guys, when I graduated, my first semester in college, I joined a fraternity. And I quickly picked up the nickname Pigpen because like I was just all out. In 1996, I took 2 Xanaxes for the first time, and it dramatically changed my life. So here's the thing, here's what I'm saying. Our prevention efforts typically focus on external decision-making processes. The founder of DARE said this, Daryl Gates, in 1992, and this is no judgment for Mr. Gates, this is just a fact. He said that casual drug users need to be taken outside and shot. Science says that rates of addiction have risen 400% since the implementation of DARE. And this is no judgment on them, it's just we didn't know better. Instead of looking to external decision-making skills, the trait-based modality of prevention builds resiliency from the inside. It will allow students the understanding to not only know who they are, but to know what to do. It's going to enhance self-perception, mitigate shame and isolation, and promote meaningful engagement and connection to others. So I had planned to do this maybe 5 years from now, but we've been approached by 3 school districts, 2 in Kentucky, 1 in Ohio, and they're asking us to roll out the trait-based model prevention this fall. So I'm going to go to work on the videos, and if I get off the path of balance, Amanda will be sure to tell me that I've lost my way, so to speak. But we know better since we've been through it once before. So I really appreciate your guys' time and attention, and I do want to open it up for any questions real quickly if you do have any. Yes.
Hi, Dr. Coop, thanks so much. the 97% success rate. Were some of those people already sober and then went through this as a way of building retention and resiliency, or were they all starting from scratch?
Great question. We're looking at the best phase to introduce this modality. And so for that pilot cohort, all of the clients that entered into that cohort, that group, had at least 90 days of sobriety. So they were in the second phase of that residential treatment center's programming. And look, trait-based can work with 12 steps. That's what they do at that treatment center. And it can work with it in conjunction with it, but it can also stand alone. We're at other treatment centers, we're introducing trait-based on like day one. And what we're going to do is look at the outcomes and to see what works best, where is it best placed to achieve the most desirable results. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you. That was a good presentation. I like what you shared. I just was wondering, could you share a little bit more about how this program has helped people with, cultural competency as well as inclusion?
Yeah.
Like how's that been working?
Yeah, so what we do, and we introduced it there in Kentucky, where people are they have a high regard for belonging to the right group or having the right views, the right ideas, the right thoughts. It's a very rigid landscape, so to speak. If you talk either religiously or socially, people are pretty much committed to their camp. And we are aware of this, and we want to move people forward to a more, not only inclusive, but a unitive understanding as well. And what that looks like, from our lessons, the titles of our lessons, the content that is within it, we encourage the absolute removal of any stigmatization or stigmatizing language. We promote not only the relevance and the effectiveness of other approaches and modalities, but we move to honor those, right, as well, that represent not only a diverse demographic that we have in our clients and in our locations, but internally as well. And I think that's where it builds upon. We bring about this acceptance on an internal level of all the various parts of ourselves, kind of like IFS, right? We have parts of ourselves that may not get along, and we promote inclusion, integration, and wholeness internally, which then what we share through the modality, that carries over externally to all that we meet, everyone that we meet. We lay no blame, judgment, critique. We promote and empower those that are around us.
Thank you, Doctor. For those of us that run programs based on, grants, a lot of times one of the conditions is that the modality has to be evidence-based. And so I'm asking you, is evidence-based, and if not, like when is it going to be?
It is. That's a great question. It is evidence-based, and it's actually billable. Yeah, it's billable in psychosocial education under codes H0004 and H2027. So with every client, we are capturing not only their general information, the demographic detail, but also we measure at the day of graduation, and then 30 days after, 6 months after, 1 year after, and then up to 5 years after. And we're looking at more than just sobriety. We're looking at, are our graduates better sons, better daughters, better employees, better leaders? Are they able to navigate difficult emotions better? And we use surveys and instruments to assess that and to demonstrate the efficacy of the modality. So yes, evidence-based.
Nice, thank you.
Yes, sir.
One more question.
Yeah.
I noticed that earlier you used the solution focus. Like
Yeah.
that's like one of your principles. And I'm wondering, like, why did you choose that one from all of the different modalities that are available?
Yeah,
why did you choose that one?
There's a lot of great other modalities out there, and I didn't want to get very, very complicated. My personal favorite is internal family systems. Yeah. Okay. Good. And but I didn't want to get too conceptual or theoretical, so we went with solutions focused. primarily with the idea and understanding, like, let's just help our clients set small, achievable goals for the future. So we keep them focused on that. And we've got content on like root causes and trauma-informed care as well. So that we went with that approach. So that's kind of the understanding or rationale behind that, to kind of help us begin moving forward in our lives. Yes, sir.
Hi. So, are you in California at all yet?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's important that there be another language. I know for sure I wouldn't be able to implement anything that wasn't in Spanish as well.
Yep.
So, do you have plans to do that? And I don't expect you to say 90 days, but
Thank you. Thank you. That's great. That's great. Yeah, we actually, for Albuquerque, we did that with the videos. We put them all in Spanish subtitles, so we can do that, no problem. And even the guidebooks, as we pick up, accounts that have bilingual people that speak Spanish, we can have the guidebooks translated as well. And we want to come to California, obviously. We're obviously honored to be here. And the way you guys do your seminars, conferences, and meetings, I mean, who would not want to come out here, right? This
Right?
is amazing.
Oh.
Yes. Anyone else have any questions? All right. Yep. Oh, yes, yes, great, great. Here's the QR code one more time. All right, there's the QR code if you guys want to take it. Be sure to put in your email address. You're going to get a full PDF report of your assessment results. And if there's no other questions, I just want to say thank you so very much. It's absolutely, I'm honored that you have given me the time and attention that you have this morning. And remember, what we always tell our clients and graduates, after they graduate, they become ambassadors for starting from strength, which is the ability to not only start from strength themselves, but to help everyone they know do the same. Start from strength, always.
Thank you, Dr. Roop. And also, CCAPP would like to present you a certificate of appreciation.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet. Thank you. That's so good.
Hello, everyone. Now it's time for a 30-minute break. Enjoy.